You're listening to the Old Dirty Boston podcast. In this rundown, I'm talking about the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist. $500 million of artwork stolen in 81 minutes. And the Boston gangster, I think, was behind it. On March 18th, 1990, 13 works of art valued at over $500 million were stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. The FBI lists the Gardner heist as the largest theft of private property in world history. The paintings have never been recovered, and no one has ever been convicted of the theft. The Gardner heist remains Boston's greatest unsolved mystery. First, let's start with what was stolen. Among the stolen works were 3 Rembrandts, including The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, Rembrandt's only known seascape, 5 works by Degas, The Concert, one of only 34 works known by Vermeer, thought to be the most valuable unrecovered painting in the world, $250 million. In total, 13 works were taken. The robbery would occur in the early morning hours of Sunday, March 18, 1990. Around 12:30 a.m., several witnesses on their way home from a St. Patrick's Day party saw 2 men dressed as Boston police officers, parked in a hatchback on Palace Road near the side entrance of the museum. There were 2 guards on duty that night at the Gardner, Rick Abath and Randy Hestand. The security protocol was that one guard would patrol the galleries with a walkie-talkie and a flashlight, while the other remained at the security desk. This being Hestand's first night on duty, Abath went first. During Abath's rounds, a fire alarm sounded, signaling an alarm in multiple rooms. After investigating the rooms in question, Abath found no sign of fire and shut off the alarm manually, chalking it up to a malfunction. Before he finished his rounds, Abath made a quick stop at a side entrance door. He briefly opened and shut the door. Abath said in questioning that he did this routinely to confirm the door was locked, but there were no instances of this door being opened in previous security records. It's possible that the 2 suspects dressed as Boston PD could have seen this door open. It's also possible that this could have been a signal. Rick Abath was a wannabe rock star. He took the security gig because as long as he showed up to work, it didn't really matter if he was a little drunk or a little stoned. He even admitted to letting friends into the museum on New Year's Eve a few months before the robbery, so they could drink and do some drugs in the museum's galleries. He wasn't worried, he said. Nothing ever happened, and nothing ever did until March 18th, 1990. In fairness to Rick Abath, he was investigated by the FBI and did pass a lie detector test stating that he was not involved in the heist. The lead FBI investigator on the case was quoted as saying, "The guards were too incompetent and too foolish to have pulled off this crime." So why would Abath allow 2 men dressed as Boston PD into the museum in the middle of the night? Why would he then step away from the security desk and the panic button, allowing the men to subdue him and tie him up? Abath says he assumed the police were there in connection to the fire alarm he had earlier turned off. He also claims he stepped away from the desk because the officer said he matched the description of a suspect they were investigating. They scared him by saying, "There may be a warrant out for your arrest." Years later, in an interview, Abath admitted he did what the police asked because he was afraid they would detain him, and he could miss a Grateful Dead concert he had tickets for that night. Let's get to the robbery. At 1:20 a.m., the thieves rang the buzzer and explained to Abath that they were police investigating a disturbance. Abath could see they were wearing what appeared to be real Boston police uniforms. Despite orders to never let anyone into the museum, Abath let the men in at 1:24 a.m. The thieves approached Abath and asked him to call anyone else in the museum down to the security desk. Abath radioed Hestand and returned downstairs. The shorter man told Abath that they may have a warrant for his arrest and to come out from behind the desk and provide identification. Abath complied, stepping away from the desk and his only way to alert police. The shorter man forced Abath against a wall, spread his legs, and handcuffed him. Abath noticed that he was not frisked. Hestand walked into the room at this time, and the taller thief turned around and handcuffed him. Once both guards were handcuffed, the thieves revealed their true intentions to rob the museum and asked the guards to not give them any problems. The thieves wrapped duct tape around the heads and eyes of the guards. Without asking for directions, they led the guards into the basement, where they were handcuffed to a steam pipe and workbench. The thieves examined the wallets of the guards and explained that they knew where they lived, and that if they didn't tell the authorities anything, they would get a reward in about a year. It took the thieves about 11 minutes to subdue the guards. It was now 1:35 a.m. The theft begins. The first movement in the Dutch room on the second floor was recorded at 1:48 a.m. This was 13 minutes after they finished subduing the guards. It's believed the thieves wanted to ensure that the police had not been notified before entering the galleries. As the thieves approached the paintings in the Dutch room, a device began beeping that would normally trip when a patron was too close. The thieves smashed it. They took Storm on the Sea of Galilee and Lady and a Gentleman in Black and threw them on the marble floor, shattered the glass frames. They then used a blade and cut the canvases out of their stretchers. They also removed a large Rembrandt self-portrait, but left it leaning against a cabinet. Investigators believe they didn't realize it was painted on a solid piece of wood and not canvas like the other paintings. The final piece taken from the room was an ancient Chinese vase. At 1:51 a.m., while one thief continued working in the Dutch room, the other entered a narrow hallway dubbed the Short Gallery. They took 5 Degas sketches from the room. The last work stolen was Chez Tortoni from the Blue Room on the first floor. The museum's motion detectors did not detect any motion within the Blue Room during the thieves' time in the building. Only footsteps detected in that room that night were Abath's during the time he passed through the gallery on his patrol earlier. As they prepared to leave, the thieves checked down the guards one last time. They asked if they were comfortable. They then moved to the security director's office. They took the video cassettes that recorded their entrance and the data printouts from the motion detecting equipment. The movement data was still captured on a hard drive, which remained untouched. The thieves then moved to take the artwork out of the museum. The side entrance doors were opened at 2:40 a.m. and again for the last time at 2:45 a.m. The robbery lasted 81 minutes. When the shift guards arrived in the morning and could not find Abath and Hestand, they contacted police. The police searched the building and found the guards still tied up in the museum basement. So now the big question: who did it? There are a range of theories around who stole the Gardner works. Based on everything I've read and the advice of some people close to the Boston underworld at the time, I believe the robbery was carried out by Boston gangster Bobby Donati with his younger brother, Dickie. So who was Bobby Donati? Bobby Donati was an American career criminal associated with the New England-based Patricia crime family. Here's the evidence to support the Donati theory. In the early 1970s, Bobby Donati became friends with a man named Miles Connor Jr., a former rock musician and the son of a Milton police officer. Connor had turned to art theft as a career. In 1974, Connor and Donati broke into the Woolworth estate in Monmouth, Maine, and stole 5 paintings by Andrew and N.C. Wyeth. They were caught when one of Donati's acquaintances turned out to be an undercover FBI agent. In an even bolder move, while he was out on bail, Connor arranged for the theft of a Rembrandt from the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. Connor later said that Donati also helped him in that robbery attempt. Both men ended up in prison. After finishing their sentences, the men continued to plan art thefts, looking for their one big score. The two frequently visited the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. They saw how weak the security was in contrast to the value of the works in the museum. They even identified specific works they believed they could offload in the black market. Connor also impressed upon Donati the value of a bronze Shang Dynasty vase, the same vase stolen in the robbery. Connor and Donati went as far as to climb nearby trees and time the guards' movements through the various galleries during the night hours when the museum was closed. They agreed the most effective way to enter would be to pose as police officers, which they had done in previous jobs. Immediately after the robbery, FBI agents went to see Connor, then in jail in Chicago, awaiting trial on another theft. Satisfied that Connor was in jail at the time of the robbery, he was dismissed as a suspect. In 1997, Connor told Vanity Fair that he believed Donati was behind the theft and that he had taken the Chinese vase, the oldest work in the museum's collection, to present to him as a gift when Connor was released from prison. In 1997, Boston Herald reporter Tom Mashberg was taken by a source, William Youngworth, to a Brooklyn warehouse. Youngworth was an antique dealer who had bought property stolen by Connor and Donati in the past. In the warehouse, Mashberg was shown what he believed to be Storm on the Sea of Galilee. It is the only possible sighting of any of the stolen works since the theft. Youngworth was told that Donati had masterminded the heist. Donati would have been the most capable man in Boston of pulling off the burglary. The use of police uniforms was a plan Connor had come up with years earlier. This is a big one. Shortly before the crime, Donati was seen at a Revere bar holding a package that witnesses say contained police uniforms. Stephen Kurgian, who wrote the book Master Thieves, the Boston gangsters who pulled off the world's greatest art heist, reported in 2014 that he received a call from an anonymous source who claimed that Donati stole the paintings and planned to use them to barter the release of mob boss Vinnie Ferrara from federal custody. This is consistent with a letter sent to a museum director, Ann Hawley, in 1994. The letter contained information only someone familiar with the thefts could have known, as the information had not yet been made public. Donati visited Vinnie Ferrara at the federal lockup in Hartford, Connecticut. Aware their conversations were being monitored, Donati told Ferrara he would get him out. Ferrara pleaded with him not to try anything. "No matter what you do, it's not going to get me out of here," he said. "They will for these. You'll see," Donati told him. After their meeting, Ferrara learned of the Gardner theft, and he knew it was Donati. 3 months later, Donati went back to visit Ferrara, now in Plymouth State Prison. Ferrara asked Donati, "Was it you?" "I told you I would do it," Donati said. Vinnie Ferrara warned Donati to leave Boston for his own safety. Donati reassured him, "Don't worry, I buried the stuff. Once this blows over, I'll find the right person to negotiate with." This would be the last time Donati and Ferrara ever spoke. On September 24th, 1991, 3 days after he had been seen leaving his house in Revere, Bobby Donati was found dead in the trunk of his Cadillac. He had been bound, beaten, and stabbed. The killing remains unsolved. The Gardner theft remains the largest art heist in history. Despite a $10 million reward, none of the works have ever been recovered. You can still see the empty frames in their original locations on the walls of the Gardner Museum today. This is the Old Dirty Boston Podcast.